Welcome to the Outtake Show, the film podcast where we talk about all things within the movie and TV world. You're joined by our hosts, myself, Junior, and Maz, but we're also joined by a very, very special guest. We have Wale Davis in the building, writer of My Father's Shadow, the new drama film that is set in the early 90s, that follows a father and two sons as they head to Lagos during one of the most important election days in Nigerian history. Wale, how are you doing?
I'm good, bro. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to connect with you guys. And yeah, man, it's also a really beautiful day as today is the day my father's shadow gets released in the UK. So it feels like a really special moment, for us because I feel it's now people are actually on a wider level going to get to see the film.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's really well said. Like me and Maz really enjoyed the film. Actually, Maz has seen it twice now. She's just coming back from a screening of just the other day. Maz, you had some notes about terms of stuff that you saw during
Yeah,
the
so
screening.
yeah, 100%. Sorry to jump in on you there, Junior.
Mm.
So yesterday I was at the Peckham Plex with
Yeah.
Days and Movie for their cinema club, and we were able to watch it again. I think it was like very, very on brand for me to be in the cinema on my birthday and watching My Father's Shadow. I kept to
Well,
my
happy
promise.
birthday.
Thank you. And we had a Q&A with you and Emma Dabry as well, who
Yes.
kind of hosted the Q&A session, and you broke down how initially the script started off from a letter that you'd wrote for your father. Um,
Yes.
and this was during the process of also doing another short film, which is Lazarus, which Junior loves. And I'm just kind of curious, what was the process like of transitioning a letter into a feature script?
I think the full part, because I didn't want to go fully into, I think the full part, I'd read a book actually, and it was a book called The Power of Now. And at the time, I was a bit fascinated by the concepts in the book and the author. So I actually then started researching the author, and then I found an interview he had done with like Oprah Winfrey. Um, and I watched that interview, and what happened was right after that interview, it rolled into another interview where Oprah Winfrey was talking to some lady. I don't know who she is, but the lady was talking about writing letters to her dead husband. And, like they had promised each other they would go and see China and they would go to all these different things. And now she was doing them alone. So she was writing the letter to her husband saying, oh, I went to China, it was this. And she was giving him all the details. And she said it really helped with grief and it really helped with her processing, and still communicating with her husband in this way. So I thought, okay, wow, it'd be interesting. Let me see what that would feel like to write a letter to my dad. And so then I started to write this letter, and I had a very emotional response. And it was weird because it was like a completely normal day. I was completely fine. Everything was going great. But it brought up a lot of emotions. It brought up a lot of tears. It brought up a lot of it took me, I'd say like maybe I wrote two A4 sides of the letter. And I feel like, in that period, I probably broke down about 10 times just trying to get to the end. And I kept going because I was really fascinated by the idea that like I felt fine. So it felt like an out of body experience. I was like, why am I crying? Like what? Like I was just really having a dialogue with myself. Like what is happening to you? Um, and then I think and then I speaking to my mom, she was like, oh yeah, like, I told my mom like something really weird happened today. I tried to write this letter and I just kept breaking down. And she was, oh yeah, that like makes sense. Like if any of my children, if someone told me that happened to any of my kids, I'd have immediately said it was you. And I was like, what do you mean? And she kind of reminded me of like times in childhood where like I couldn't, I don't know, go to the graveyard or I couldn't, like it was just too emotional for me. And, and when she said it, it was like I remembered it, but like it was feelings and emotions that I like suppressed completely. Like, so, I mean, as she said it, I remembered it, but I've never thought of it until she reminded me of it. So then that just started sending me down this wormhole of like emotions and memory and like things you remember and things that you've suppressed and things you've hidden and how they're like big gaps in your memory. But like it didn't feel like something that was strange. It felt like it just felt like, yeah, perhaps it was things that, I yeah, I was just like like holding back or hiding, or I don't know what it was, but I think that just kind of led me to down this exploration of memory and grief, and then I wrote this script, and I think it was about 12 or 13, 14 pages initially. It was just meant to be a short film, and I sent it to Akinola, and he immediately was like, "Oh, I cried when I read this," and but then he had his short film Lizard that he was then minded to do. So he asked if I could. Sorry, one second. Yeah, he asked if I could yeah, like help write Lizard with him. And then we did that first, and then I guess from the success of Lizard, and you get like people who invest in the film, and they have more confidence now, to say, okay, you know what, these guys can do a feature now. Maybe the next logical step after the short film is a feature. What story would you guys want to tell for your feature? And so he then asked me, like, would I be open to him direct? Because initially when I wrote it, I tried to direct it. If I'm being honest, like I'm going to try and do this as a short film and try and direct it. But I didn't have the resources. I didn't have, I didn't have the resources, quite plain. I didn't have the experience as well in how to make this come to life. So for me, it was then like at this time he asked if he could direct it, and just like he's someone I really trust. I really trust his vision and his perspective and the way he tells stories and the way he crafts and the way he sees things. Like he sees so many things in advance that I would never like I don't know, I would never have thought of, or maybe I'd have thought of differently. Um so I was like, yeah, sure, let's develop it. And then we just started the process of fleshing it out. Which took about 2 years, but yeah, the process of fleshing it out into a full script.
Yeah, it's not, that's really beautiful. Like, yeah, I've heard the story about you sending it to him kind of on a random day, and he just gave it a read, and he's like, "Why did you do this?" type of thing. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, you kind of
yeah,
like, I'm crying my eyes out right now. So
yeah.
it's quite magical. This is essentially like a director debut for Akinola, and you were your first writing like for a feature together as a family essentially. But it's very interesting seeing that sadly your father passed away at such a young age, and kind of taking that experience and kind of making writing up this film. Um, did you find how did you find writing about grief in this format?
You know, the funny thing is that, like, I actually didn't, and it's weird. I say this to people, like, I actually didn't feel that much when I was writing, because, like, I feel like, as a child, like, I'd already make up all these stories as a child. Like, I remember, they would call my mother into school and they would just be like, yeah, like, he's making up all these stories, like, his dad's a secret agent and, like, he lives in China. He's because I guess maybe I didn't want to accept the reality. So I kept, making up. So, and I remember the first time actually when I was like, I saw the Born Identity. It was very familiar because that was a story I'd made up as well. Like, oh, my dad's lost his memory. He's in China as a secret agent. He can't contact us. And and the other kids in school be like, yeah, sure, Wale, like, sure, you know. But then eventually I had to call my mom. I was just like, yeah, this kid is clearly not like taking it well or accepting reality. So when I was writing it, to me, it felt like a story I was writing. Like I didn't, I did put in a lot of things. And maybe I thought like in writing it, I was protecting myself or creating some distance or space between me and the characters by not naming the kid Wale or whatever. Like maybe no one would know it's me. But I felt like, like for me, I in thinking about it now, like the writing part didn't really raise that much emotion to me, which is weird because Akela said he read it and he cried, but I cried when I watched it. Like so it was like yeah, like when I watched it, like I was in bits, especially because I watched it the first time. I'd taken this distance away from it after we finished production because I was struggling with the idea of like obviously I've written it and everything seems super important and super personal. So like in the edit, I didn't want to be involved in the edit because I felt like we would clash, because this is where the director and the editor have to like do their job. So it was almost this idea of detachment. Like I've done my job now, and because I trust my brother and I trust his collaborators and I trust everyone, I trust that they'll land it in a good way. So let me remove myself from this process now, so I'm not too attached to anything. So I didn't watch it during the edit. They called me in to help with like Yoruba subtitles or whatever because I speak Yoruba. So I went in for that. But even then, I was like, only show me the scenes you want me to. Only show me the things you want me to translate for you. I don't want to watch the whole thing. So in the end, then watching it on the big screen in Cannes was the first time I watched it, and I was in bits when I watched it there. And I think for me, seeing it visually was when I realized, oh, I really put in, there was a lot in the writing and then in the directing and then it coming to life that I probably was not, like I didn't take into account, when I was writing it. So yeah, so for me, it was more of a visual thing than in the writing process when the emotions and feelings came up.
And I feel like the writing, even if it didn't necessarily show you all the emotions, the
Mm.
imagery that you used, especially the African spiritualism, was
Yeah.
like really powerful. The story of like having a dream is something that I think anyone within the African diaspora, there's always the mom having a dream or the auntie having a dream, and that's
Yeah.
something we're used to growing up in. And I wanted to understand your whole research process of kind of getting into that, because I know you talked to different people within the Igbo spirituality world as well.
Yeah, so I wanted to, the thing I like, I really, what I love about writing, and I think maybe that's why I didn't feel the emotion, because I'm really obsessed with detail, right? So in the writing, like I'm packing it with so much detail down to the ants that are in the scene and the insects eating the fruit and all of that. That's all in the writing. So I'm really trying to like imagine and visualize every little detail and how can I add more detail to this to give the director and also in my mind the reader more to like use and utilize, and so in that instant, like I then like I want it to be super real. I want people who communicate with spirits to watch it and be like, right, like I recognize some things here. I want people who lived in June 12 to be able to recognize. I want people who are questioning about their spirituality and your to have things in there as well. Could be triggers or like signs or messages or whatever, So all in all, like I researched with people in the practice, Yoruba, also some Igbo traditional beliefs. I spoke to people in the June 12 movement. I spoke to people who claim they speak to spirits and communicate with the dead. I spoke to like, and for me, it was fascinating because I don't think I'd regularly speak to these people just on a normal one-on-one everyday basis, So having some of those conversations, I remember like a friend of mine told me how he went to school in South Africa, and there was this girl, and he's Nigerian, he's Igbo as well, and there was this white girl in South Africa who told him messages from his late brother. And he told me this story years before we wrote My Father's Shadow. And I just remember speaking to him. I'm like, yeah, you went to uni with this girl. Do you think there's any chance you could like find her? And he was like, oh, it's crazy. Like, I'll check on Facebook. And then he goes on Facebook and, oh, you know what's crazy? She lives in London now. And I was like, oh, perfect. I'm going to be in London. Like, can I meet her? And so I met her at like Liverpool Street Station. And I was just like, yeah, like I just want to find out, how do you communicate with spirits? What's that? Like, what happens when a spirit appears? And, and all these different things that like, was really just like, yeah, fascinating to me. And in all those things, it could be something really little, but it's a detail that, I find, oh, this detail would be so great to add to the script or add to the story. So my process before I go and write is a lot of research, like a lot of conversations, a lot of like, asking questions, a lot of like, what do birds mean in spirit, in the Yoruba spirituality? What are these different signs? What are nosebleeds? Like the girl who said she speaks to spirits said she has nosebleeds. And I was like, oh, wow, that's fascinating. That could be something I use as a sign, like, so it's just all of these different things that I was able to like get from my research and make it have that added layer of detail.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear because while watching the film, there was a lot of visuals on animals, and I was always like interested
Yeah.
in like why like there was I think there was a bit from the start where it was like the ants, and then of course as we go
Yes.
through, there's different animals popping through, like the giant whale, of course, being a huge one. But it's nice to understand from that, and also from the short film Lizard, there was also a lot of themes of like animals like kind of interacting with one another. So it's kind of interesting to hear that you mentioned that. But while outside of writing, you're also a huge in music as well as an A&R. So I always wanted to just understand whether music have ever had an element with you when it came to making My Father's Shadow.
Yeah, very much so. So even before I became an A&R, I work in music across different capacities. I'm an artist myself. I'm part of a group called Show Them Camp. I've been making music in Nigeria for a while. Then I started shooting music videos for our group and then shooting music videos for other artists in Nigeria. So I've shot probably about 30 plus music videos for artists. And then that kind of led me into um, like whenever you shoot, like I kind of figured out how to get into communities to shoot, how to make relationships, and I feel like in Lagos I could shoot anywhere in the most like difficult places or in the the maddest hood to shoot. Like I know how to get in and speak to the people and communicate and I know the layers of which because a lot of people just try and go there with security, but there's so much community work you have to do before you even go in and shoot to ensure. I mean, you could go in with security for sure, but if anything happens, the people are not supporting you. So it's like for me, how do I get like the support of the people, the community? So there's like Akin was saying, there's like multiple layers to filming in like Lagos. There's multiple layers of security you need, not just like, and community security is the most vital one actually, if anything pops off. So for me it's like that skill of like shooting music videos in all of these different places. When Akinola started shooting and bringing work to Nigeria, I would be his producer. Like I would actually um, get him access to places he would film, get him access to like cast and crew, equipment and all of that. And so that's how our relationship on the film side started, me being his producer. And then a few years of doing the production, I then started a production company called Fatherland, with my partner Fumbi, who produced My Father's Shadow. And so then we started doing like commercials and projects in Nigeria, videos, short form, content. And then, so from there, I think it was just a natural progression. At the same time, Akin is doing his director work in the UK. So he's getting bigger. So he's bringing jobs to us and we're helping him with the jobs and producing them on ground. And then, so yeah, like I think we've just been developing. And what that does as well is Nigeria, it's not like here where you have, like, if you want to, I don't know, for example, if you want to, I don't call a handyman or whatever, you can go and read like loads of reviews of people reviewing his work. Nigeria, we don't have that structure. So it's really like word of mouth and it's really like trial and error. Okay, I worked with this lighting guy, he was terrible, so I'm not working with him again. I worked with this lighting guy, he's great, so I'm gonna keep calling him and he's gonna be my lighting guy. And this is gonna be my security person. And this is gonna be our set designer or whatever. So a lot of those people we've worked with over the years, we've just grown these relationships and now they're people that are working on set with us on My Father's Shadow. So for a lot of us, it's like a combination of like multiple years of like working together. And I do think like the origin of that for me was music. I'm still involved in music as an artist manager, as an A&R, as a musician still. So it plays a big part in everything. And I think it's just film is then just another layer of creativity. And also with music, I've been writing for years, so I also think that also played a part.
It sounds like music helps with storytelling as coming from an artist's perspective, then you're able to tell these stories from a longer or a different medium as well, opposed to instrumental. You can tell it through visual and through dialogue as well. Yeah, my
100%.
partner is a producer and she's done some stuff in Lagos and she's told me how it can be quite difficult working there. So once you have like the
Yeah.
connections of people you have there, then it makes it a lot more smooth sailing. So it's very interesting to hear you share that, especially with Fatherland as well, because I'm seeing that pop up a lot more on my feed. So it seems like you
Yeah.
guys are really grown, which is quite beautiful to see.
Thank
Um,
you.
but Wale, it's been a pleasure discussing with you, My Father's Shadow. My Father's Shadow is in cinemas right now, so I do recommend everyone out there to go watch it. If you've seen it already, then see it again, you might as well. But
Yeah, I say that to people as well. Like I'm sure like as you said, you've seen it twice, or Maz has seen it twice. I think that like, I think there's a lot of breadcrumbs and a lot of like things you notice when you watch it the next time that you clock on that helps you understand the story even more. Because every question that everyone asks about, is it a ghost story? Is it a this story? Is a person alive? Is it a dream or whatever? I think everything is in the film. Like if you watch it the second time, you'll be able to answer that yourself a lot clearer, and so yeah, I really recommend people to go and see it. I think it's an important conversation about fatherhood as well and how perhaps we need to update what fatherhood means in our communities in 26. At least have this the dialogue. I think is important. To see ourselves Nigerians as Africans on the screen in this way. I think a good film for you to take your father, take your mother, take your siblings, and go and watch. And if you do love the film, like my brother says, your greatest marketing tool is word of mouth, is people sharing, is people putting on their stories. So if you do love the film, please tell everybody. It's officially out right now.